Today I'm going to show you how you can turn your LEGO Star Wars MOCs from something like this into something a bit more like this. So step 1 is to use the SNOT technique. SNOT stands for studs not on top and is commonly used by a lot of MOC builders. It's a very simple technique and very generic technique, however can really bring your MOCs to life and clean them off just that little bit more. I personally use it quite a lot on the floor of certain bases, mainly Imperial ones, to create a really nice pattern in the floor. I usually lay a bunch of 2x6 bricks on their side and add in the necessary details where I need to. It really does create a nice pattern on the floor and makes it a really clean and refined look. The SNOT technique can also be used in the walls and on the ceiling, and maybe even in the terrain if you need to. A very commonly used piece for the SNOT technique is the SNOT brick, a very useful brick that is mainly used when using SNOT techniques on the walls. But really, in general, it's a really good technique to use if you're interested in bringing your MOCs to the whole next level and you haven't already used it. So that's my first tip. Now tip number 2 are angles. Using angles in your build is something that I've recently started doing a whole lot more, especially in my most recent MOC, which was literally a base there's like not a single straight line on it. It was a very difficult thing to do, however was definitely one of my best MOCs as a result of it. If you're a newer MOC builder who just wants to get started with using angles and things, just using regular slope bricks here and there can really bring some nice variation in the different designs of the walls within your MOC. If you're building a base, it can definitely add a lot to it. However, if you're a more experienced MOC builder like I am, who wants to try something a whole lot different and bring your MOCs to the next level, using a really complicated Technic structure is definitely the way to go. That's what I did, and although it was a lot of pain and suffering to go through, it looks really good, so it's definitely worth it. On a larger scale, angles can definitely bring a base to a whole new different scale and size and make it look absolutely awesome. You can add a whole ton more details on there than as to what you normally would be able to, and it does look really good. And definitely on a smaller scale as well, adding in those little angle details with some slope bricks can definitely bring in some nice different textures, especially in rock work and stuff like that. So angles don't necessarily have to be used within buildings, they can be used in terrain and all sorts of other places. So that's definitely something to add if you want to. Now, tip number 3 is minifigure positioning. Minifigures are definitely a key component to any LEGO MOC. LEGO Star Wars, LEGO anything, really. They're a key component to it because they're LEGO minifigures, they're the characters, they tell the story. So adding a different position to them is really useful. Of course, minifigures have their generic way of looking like a robot when they move, and that just doesn't really tell much of a story unless they're a robot, which they're not, most of them. So adding in different little things, especially with battle droids as a good example, where you can stretch them out, move them around, make them look like they're not meant to look in LEGO form, definitely tells a whole new story. You can make them look like they've just been shot, make them look like they're running, make them look like they've fallen in half, whatever you want to do. Now if you want to do this with normal minifigures, you might have to take off their limbs and stuff, add a tiny little bit of blue tack to stick them back on, but it does definitely create a really nice end result. I'm not going to get too much into this myself because I'm not such an expert on it, but someone who is Coconut Brix Studios. He made a whole video on it. I'll leave a card up there now where you can check out his video where he came up with some very good techniques to use in terms of minifigure placement and positioning, so definitely want to check out if you're more interested in doing that. But just remember, the minifigures are the story of your MOC, and without good positioning, the story's a little bit lackluster. Now tip number 4 is density. Now density can mean a whole ton of different things in LEGO creations. Now the first one is raising up the MOC. Raising it up can allow you to add a border, which really does clean off the MOC, but also allows you to add in different little heights into the MOC, little hills, mounds, ditches, and it can really bring the whole outside terrain of your build to life. I do this quite a lot and started doing it a lot more recently than I used to, and it definitely has added a whole ton of different layers to my MOC, which I never used to add. So I'm really happy that I found that way to do it. Now this is a really simple thing. You literally just have to add some filler bricks underneath and build it up a little bit. It really does add an absolute ton to it. Even if you're not raising it up that much, it can still add a nice little bit of depth and variety in the height that you're seeing, and really does help out an absolute ton. Now another form of density is the minifigures, and having too many minifigures in too little space can make it look like some overcrowded stadium, which isn't really what you're looking for unless you're making an overcrowded stadium. If you are, then fair play. But if you're not, don't do that. If you have a small space, add a small amount of minifigures. You just want the right amount. If you have too many, it looks overcrowded. Too little, it just looks a bit bland. If you're building a big 48x48 grey baseplate MOC, then you don't really want to be adding in 5 minifigures, because that's looking a little bit bland in my opinion. But if you're building a 48x48 grey baseplate MOC and you're adding in 100 minifigures, that can also be far too overcrowding. Just find the balance in the middle. So tip number 5 is variation, and to start off with, I'm going to go on to my favourite thing in my MOCS, and that is the foliage. I'm a big fan of adding in lots of different foliage within my terrain, as it does bring it all to life a huge amount. I like to add in a ton of different plant pieces. Now I have one predominant piece that I use, and they're these green spoked grass pieces. They're really useful as they represent the grass within the MOC. However, adding in different sorts of plants and vegetation, different colours of green and stuff like that can really change up what you're seeing and make it look less bland and more diverse within the build. That really does help out an absolute ton. So to anybody making diverse terrain and stuff like that, make sure to add in different colours, different types of that plant, and all sorts of different things that can really bring your outside to life. This is the same case within buildings and stuff like that. If you're building, for example, an Imperial or First Order base, they're quite repetitive, so you of course want to do that repetitive nature that they have, but add in small, subtle little changes each time to give the viewer something different to look at. That can really create a nice differentiating look between the different scenes in your MOC and just really bring a lot to it. If you have the same thing, it gets repetitive and the viewer eventually just doesn't want to look at it anymore because they know exactly what they're going to see. So make sure to add in different variety within the textures of your build, in the details, and of course in the foliage. So they are my 5 tips on how to improve your LEGO MOCs. Of course, they're just my opinions and they're what I like to look out for within my builds. However, of course, let me know in the comment section below what you like to look out for in your builds that really bring them to life and help improve them quite a lot. I'll be really interested to know, and if I do a part 2, I'll definitely be using some of your guys' ideas that you let me know down in the comments. Of course, guys, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. If you're new, consider subscribing and sharing the video with someone else who might also enjoy it and want to improve their MOCs a bit. That'd be really, really helpful for me and them, I guess. But as always, guys, have a brilliant rest of your day. Stay awesome, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.